open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Kentucky's Voice. Jim Waters here with you, with my co-host Vladimir Aguilar, and we'll get to him in a moment. But first, I want to talk about sporting schizophrenia. Is it just me? Or is the University of Louisville basketball team a different team when they're at home versus when they're on the road? 20-8 overall this year. 14-2 at home, 3-0 on neutral courts, 3-6 on the road, including a big loss last night to North Carolina. It was painful. 77-74. Sometimes I wish they'd just get blown out instead of losing by a close number like that. They were down, they came back, but they got down so far, so early, and this has happened to them. This has been their trend on the road. Only 3 games remaining in the regular season for U of L. They'll be at Clemson on Saturday, back home next week against Syracuse on Tuesday, and then they'll end the season, Vladimir Aguilar, in Miami. You know about that? On Saturday, March 7th. And then, what is it? It's on to March Madness. Well, the University of Kentucky will also try to break a 3-game losing streak tonight at South Carolina. I'm surprised the way, the fans are about this coach. He's still there after losing 3 games in a row. But they'll be back home on Saturday against Vandy. They'll play at Texas A&M next Tuesday, and they'll be at home for their season finale on March 7th before the March Madness begins in the tournament. IU will try to break a 2-game losing streak tonight as the Hoosiers host Northwestern. And then IU is at home on Sunday against Michigan State and Minnesota on Wednesday, and then finishes up their regular season at Ohio State next Saturday. And so the current overall season records for all of our teams are University of Louisville 20-7, University of Kentucky 17-10. Make that 20-8 for U of L. Overall, 17-10 for UK, 17-10 for IU. By the way, you can hear the IU games on our sister Word Media Group stations throughout the tournament on the Big X, WXVW, 1450 AM. And you can hear all those Cards games, Vladimir. I know you're wanting to know this. All those Cards games right here on 970 WGTK, where you're also hearing this show live, Kentucky's Voice, as you do each weekday, 11 to noon. And we stream live as well on YouTube and Facebook. And then you can watch us on TV. And really, with Vlad here, it's going to make us look a whole lot better this afternoon. 12:30, 4 and 8 on Channel 21 WBNA. Thanks for making this show part of your day. And thanks for supporting this show. There are a few important ways you can support what you're doing. Let us know you're listening by texting the Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970. Support us with a one-time or recurring monthly gift by texting KY Voice to 53555. And we are a nonprofit listener-supported ministry, so that means your gift to this work is tax deductible. And also, if you're a business owner and you want to build your brand, you want to grow your customer base in the greater Louisville area, just let me know. I'd love to help you out. You can contact me at jim.waters@kyvoice.org. Let me know, and that's how you can reach me. Or you can just send me a text on the Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970. If you're a business owner, let me tell you this. We have a loyal audience that can become your customer base as well. Plus, you're supporting a great cause, including this conservative, common sense, Christian-based media outlet, which we have chosen to call Kentucky's Voice. Glad to be joined today by my co-host, Vlad Aguilar, chairman of the Cuban American Conservative Coalition, host of The Cuban Show, which has its own YouTube channel, and I'd encourage you to like and subscribe to that. It's a great program, and we invite you to do the same with Kentucky's Voice media outlet as well. Welcome, Vlad.
Good morning, Jim. How you been?
We're going to talk about our governor coming up in the next segment. I'm a little behind already, but we'll get there. Our governor continues to show his real colors, interested in pacifying the base of the Democratic Party by showing his radical creds. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who's on the pre-presidential run media circuit, continues to declare his support for allowing the gender mutilation of children. Why is this governor doing this? He's doubling down on this. We'll hear him in the next segment. Yeah. Welcome to Kentucky's Voice. You don't want to miss a minute of this show today. Stay with us.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
I'm going to stand up against discrimination in any form, regardless of how it polls in Kentucky or anywhere else, because it's the right thing to do. So I vetoed every anti-LGBTQ bill that's come across my desk in Kentucky. I've vetoed every anti-DEI bill that's come across my desk in Kentucky. And I've done that because it's the right thing to do. And you only get so much time in this job. You ought to be doing the right thing every time.
That's Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who's doubling down. He's hoping that moderates don't really know the rest of the story. That, for example, Vlad Aguilar, my co-host today, the Kentucky legislature vetoed that bill and many others. They vetoed him. I've read over 200 times if you include the line item veto overrides. And but he's hoping, I think, that people across the country, center-right Americans, which America's basically a center-right country except for the coast, he's hoping that they will think he's a moderate, even though his record shows he's really a radical leftist with policies that are out of touch with most Kentuckians and most Americans.
This is basically what they do all the time. They try to look moderate, but at the end of the day, they're going to show up, the true colors. And this is the governor we held for like the last 8 years, and hope we won't see him anymore in a long time. I don't know. It seems to me like this is a declaration for the radical left, saying like, "Hey, I'm your guy. If you wanna, support me as a presidential candidate or something like that."
Yeah, well, I'm hoping America will see through this guy who uses his Bible to defend his stance on these radical policies. Mm-hmm. And I did a column. You can check it out on Substack, on Kentucky's Voice Substack site, about showing all the radical, or many of the radical policies that Governor Andy Beshear has supported. Here's a guy whose picture has been taken with groups like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which mock Christian beliefs. And yet he uses his Bible and thumps everybody over the head with his Bible. The same thing he accuses of conservatives of doing with their God and guns and conservative beliefs. He mocks traditional beliefs through his association with groups like that. He's spoken at events with militant LGBTQ advocacy groups. He vetoes these bills that Kentuckians have sent their legislators to Frankfurt to pass.
And let's not forget, this is the guy during the COVID mandate, he wants to put you in jail just because you went to church.
Yeah.
To
Yeah. He sent out troopers to, really intimidate Christians on Easter Sunday, of all Sundays, by the way, and then implemented policies that really destroyed small businesses across our state, and yet allowed liquor stores and big box stores to remain open. He chose who was essential and who wasn't. He chose who could remain open and who wasn't. He's a lot of things, folks, but a moderate, he's not. A unifier, he's not. He also, during the Amendment 2 campaign in the fall of 2024, brought in Randy Weingarten, who is a radical lesbian, a far-left teachers union boss in the conservative Kentucky. They were like two peas in a pod. Bashir and Weingarten crisscrossing the state. Fear-mongering, scaring our rural citizens into opposing educational freedom for parents. Is this guy really a moderate?
Yeah, he's not. He's not. He's showing the true colors right now because, of course, whatever left of his mandate in Frankfurt.
And then we have him claiming that defending LGBTQ and gender mutilation policies is the right thing. That reminds me of Scripture. If the governor can quote Scripture, so can I. How about Isaiah 5:20, Vladimir, which says, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." Mm-hmm. That's my life verse for describing Andy Bashir's career as a politician, as a governor. Well, by the way, we're going to be joined a little bit later today by attorney and GOP activist Bob Waters. Really cousins. We'd be favorites if we were. But I wanted to take a look at some of the headlines. And by the way, we did get a text in on our Kentucky's Voice text line, 502-571-0970, who simply says about Bashir, power hungry.
Yeah.
Power hungry. Yeah. Power does strange things to people, Vladimir.
Yes, especially when they're trying to accomplish something that they cannot accomplish by themselves. Yeah. Because we know we got an agenda behind this guy. He was the Biden administration favorite guys back in the 2022-23.
Remember, he was being considered as a vice presidential running mate of Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
By far the most liberal, progressive politician we've had run for a high office, and the worst, too, I might say. And thank goodness she didn't win. I'll just say, hey, I got a right to say this. We believe in the First Amendment.
Yeah,
here,
of
right?
course. Yeah.
And that's my personal opinion, okay? Yeah. You can have yours. I'd like to hear yours. Another, our texter also says, power attracts politicians. Truth inspires Christians. I like that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 502-571-0970 here. That's the Kentucky's Voice text line. I wanted to take a look, Vladimir, get your thoughts on some Kentucky-related news that I think conservatives should be aware of. First, Senator Rand Paul announces legislation to end the liability shield for vaccine manufacturers. Mm-hmm. He has announced legislation that would remove these shields from civil claims for vaccine manufacturers. The End the Vaccine Carve-Out Act, introduced in the Senate by Senator Paul, co-sponsored by Utah Senator Mike Lee. The act was also introduced in the House by Arizona Representative Paul Gosar. So what this does is this allows the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, it reforms it, and it allows those who have suffered vaccine-related injury or death to take civil action directly. Currently, those injured are required to jump through a lot of hoops. It's very difficult. They have to file a petition through this Vaccine Injury Compensation Program before they can even seek relief in the courts. But the End the Vaccine Carve-Out Act would, if passed, also exclude COVID-19 vaccines from the definition of covered countermeasures, including the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, to remove broad immunities that shield manufacturers, distributors, and administrators from most COVID-19 vaccine injury claims. Senator Paul said in a press release, quote, "If a drug hurts someone, you can sue the company in court. You can hold them responsible through the normal legal process. But when it comes to vaccines, and in many cases the COVID vaccine, the rules are rigged. You're funneled into a federal no-fault program that limits damages, restricts your options, and in many cases leaves people without real justice. That's cronyism, and I think that's right."
Yeah, I'm totally agree with that because that's the only way that Big Pharma is covering their back, having those legal actions on all the bureaucracy around that. Yeah, is the only way to protect themselves.
And, I think this is a way to ferret out and bring to the surface those who had alternative motivations in pushing this vaccine.
Yeah, of course.
And if it wasn't ready for market, if it hadn't been properly prepared, if
Why
it
you
is
push
harmful,
that onto
yeah, exactly.
people? Yeah.
There should be some. We give people a chance to redress it so many other ways, with so many other things. It shouldn't be any different with vaccines. Here we go. Governor Beshear continues his criticism of ICE. Well, there's a big shocker. After multiple national media appearances, this from Wave 3, and his comments Thursday during his Team Kentucky presentation, Governor Andy Beshear claimed ICE agents are operating outside the law. Listen, my challenge here is that ICE is not operating the way any law enforcement agency can or should operate, Beshear said. As Attorney General, I was the top law enforcement official in Kentucky. I know how an investigation is supposed to be run. I know people's rights and whether or not they're being trampled on. And the fact is that ICE is acting outside the bounds of law enforcement. Of course, you remember we played the clip from him on The View when he called on ICE to withdraw from U.S. cities. ICE responded. I like ICE's response. Defiant response on social media to Beshear's televised remarks saying, quote, "We'll continue to withdraw criminal aliens from Kentucky regardless of your rhetoric, Governor."
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Beshear's ICE remarks are only part of what's been a packed week of national appearances. But, here's the thing is, he's getting all this free advertising on his weekly program. He doesn't get asked any hard questions. But he also said on The Daily Show, he said, "I'm trying to be a steady voice of what our country should be, pushing back against the division. I'm telling people their neighbors are not the enemy within, they're just your neighbor." But Vlad, what if my neighbor is my enemy? What if someone who's living on my street or living on my block or living next to me wants to do harm to this country? Doesn't that make them my enemy wherever they live?
And this is the big hypocrisy of these people, because this is the same people who run their life with 20 guards around them with guns, and they build those big walls, in their houses and all of that. So what about the neighbors? When you left the neighbors out of that sentence?
Well, this off our Kentucky's Voice text line of 502-571-0970. Regarding the vaccines, they should have retroactive means as well. Just because the law is unjust does not mean we have to honor it.
There we go.
And there should be recourse, okay? We have greetings and thank you for your upright stance and for defending our republic.
There we go.
That's what we're about here at Kentucky's
There
Voice.
we go.
You and me, Vlad. We're leading the charge today to
The
defend
republic must prevail.
to defend our republic. Well, coming up next, we're going to have with us a real treat, attorney and GOP activist Bob Waters, and we'll get his take on a debate that was held last week and his other great analysis. Stay with us.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Well, you can join us today via Kentucky's Voice text line 502-571-0970, or you can partner with us with a monthly or ongoing gift, a recurring gift, by texting KY Voice to 53555. And I was so excited, Vladimir Aguilar, my great co-host for today, great Cuban conservative, great American, great Kentuckian, that I was trying to get Bob in here early, and I think I caused him some angst there. He wasn't ready for that, but we'll have him coming up in the next segment. But Vladimir, lots of going on in the General Assembly, and I wanted to get your take on a couple of other things that our lawmakers are doing. One is that they have a bill to force big data centers, these AI centers, to cover their own utility costs instead of pushing those costs onto customers. And so what do you think about this? We got these huge data centers, and the thing about them is they use a lot of water, a lot of energy. And I think, honestly, I think some of these operations were counting on local lawmakers to pick up the tab for that energy and pass it on to customers, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen in Kentucky.
Well, yeah, that's an issue that people has been addressing for the last couple months about the data center. And to be honest, I'm going the same way. Like, they have to cover their own expenses because the taxpayer shouldn't pay for that. You know.
And, I don't think we should be giving incentives, taxpayer-funded incentives. Look at what happened with Blue Oval, know, and these incentives. And so the point being, if the private sector won't take the risk and won't ante up the dollars needed to properly do one of these centers, then why should taxpayers be on the hook for that?
I'm a 100% defender of the taxpayers.
And I know this is a temptation for lawmakers, because they can say, well, I brought a data center here. But I'm not so sure that's as big a deal as we thought it was in the beginning, because they don't hire that many people. Yes. Now, it's going to be important to have these centers, in the future, probably, with our AI and wherever that's going. But still, they need to pay for their own operation, make that investment, take that risk. Then if it fails, it's not on we, the taxpayers, to be left holding the bag for that. Also, it's mind-boggling to me, Vladimir Aguilar, that this Kentucky Supreme Court still does not understand what a charter school is and how they operate.
Well, believe it or not only the Supreme Court, many people don't even realize how important is the charter school for kids' education.
Yeah, and talk about why you say that.
Well, like I always say, the state doesn't supposed to choose what your kids' education should be. And
parents know best.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
I'll say like parents will be the only responsible for kids' education 100% all the time. Since parents are paying like tax money already to the schools and all of that, why you can't decide what your kids' education should be, And charter school will give you the choice to give you your kids a best education,
a better public education. And this is the point.
And it's been proved. Like charter schools, kids, they have more better like results on the grades and all of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's especially helping our most at-risk kids. Almost 2/3 of children in America who are in school choice programs are from low-income and minority homes.
Yes.
And yet we had a governor that ran around the state talking about how school choice, how rural families, if we had school choice, they would just be sending their money to suburban, wealthy families in suburban Kentucky. I mean, this is so far out from the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the propaganda.
I wouldn't even address it, except he was able to take advantage of the fact that people didn't really understand the issue.
Yeah.
And so that shows we've got more work to do to educate people on this. My concern about the Supreme Court, so let's set this up. The Kentucky Supreme Court has now ruled twice against school choice measures. One, a couple of years ago, against House Bill 563, which would have allowed individuals and businesses in Kentucky to make a donation to a nonprofit, third-party nonprofit organization called a Scholarship Granting Organization, which then could have given those dollars to students for all kinds of educational needs, including for to cover tuition at a private or a non-public school. That was part of it, but it also would help public school students with tutoring, it was about educating, it was about providing educational needs for the students.
Yes.
And now, last week, the Supreme Court released its ruling claiming that charter schools are unconstitutional. Now, in their ruling, they refer to the Amendment 2 issue, which had nothing to do with charter schools. How is that? Why is that? Because the ruling, Amendment 2, was about could the legislature pass legislation that allows funding of non-public education, but charter schools are not non-public schools. They are public schools that do education differently than the traditional public schools.
Of course.
So what bothers me about this, Vlad, the most, I think, is that the court said that you cannot do public education any differently. You cannot be innovative in public education, which charter schools are known for their innovation, and they have the freedom to be innovative in exchange for a higher level of performance. But they're free from many of the rules and regulations that keep them from being innovative. So they become innovative, but the court is saying you can't do that even if you are a public school or you claim to be a public school, and even if what we're doing now is failing most of our kids. So they're saying we can't do anything differently.
Well, let me ask you something. Is a constitutional right from the state to decide about your kids' education? No.
Right. Well,
it's not constitutional. So why are they going to decide that over our kids? You know.
Yeah. Well, do you mean it's not constitutional? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean,
that's what they're saying.
Yeah, the state ruling over your kids' education.
The court ruling says that. But here's another point about that is that they're big. What they allowed, what bothers me too about this is they allowed the opponents of this to set the terms of the debate, to set the parameters, and to set the premises for the debate. So they allowed the debate to be about whether charter schools were common schools, like the Constitution says. But that's not that should not be the thinking of an independent constitutionalist. If they were strictly focused on what the Constitution said, they would have said that's not the issue here. The issue here is would charter schools have been funded in a way that was unconstitutional? And the fact is the Constitution only restricts the use of funding from two different funds that the state has had in the past. Remember, this Constitution was ratified in 1898. Yeah. So at that time, there were two other educational funds, and the state was saying those dollars can only be used for common schools. There's nothing in there about the general fund dollars. And what really I'm concerned about here is the precedent that the Supreme Court will set in saying that the General Assembly cannot determine how general fund dollars are set. And that is unconstitutional. Yeah. That's against everything our founders said.
So the lawmakers are like elected for what?
Yeah, exactly.
Just to rule whatever the Supreme Court says?
Right. So you got a cabal going on here between Andy Beshear and the Supreme Court, but neither one of them respect the work of the legislature, the constitutional rights and privileges given to the legislature to determine how taxpayer dollars are spent. But there's a reason why they set it up that way, because they wanted the people's representatives to decide how dollars are spent. And there's nothing in our state constitution that prevents the Kentucky General Assembly from spending dollars on an innovative approach to public education. There's nothing there that disallows that. And yet the court stuck this square peg in this round hole. They had to stretch. They took forever to make this decision. They were trying to figure out how to satisfy the public education, the educats,
they forgot about the
bureaucracy.
Check and balance.
That's right.
Like, what's going on with the check
and
and balance?
I'm telling you, this cannot be allowed to stand. Plus, the court didn't even address all of the innovative public education we're already funding with public dollars. That is so wrong, and that is so cowardly, I think, politically cowardly. Coming up, I promise. Bob Waters with us next. Our friend, GOP activist, great attorney in Louisville. Stay with us on Kentucky's Voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Thanks for staying with us here on this Tuesday edition. I'm Jim Waters with my co-host Vladimir Aguilar, who is host of The Cuban Show and chairman of the Cuban Conservative Coalition. CCC, not the communists, the conservatives.
No, at all.
How you doing today, Vlad? You having a good day?
Pretty good, man.
What do you think about? I'm just excited about our guest here, but first I need to tell you that you can join this show 502-571-0970, the Kentucky's Voice text line, and we've got the text rolling in today. This off the text line, we were talking about AI, and this texter said because bankers own the AI push, they want people in government doing it. Well, it's not just bankers. I mean, we've seen this from different sectors before. Manufacturers, they don't mind a handout here and there once in a while. We look at the Yum Center, what that's cost us, and it's much more than what taxpayers should have paid. And that's why on the front end of these decisions, we need to do more debating. It's much better to do these and much more honest to do it on the front end than after it's built, Then we have to hope it doesn't fail because then taxpayers are on the hook. Another text, Christianity is the reason we believe the state does not have right to kids. We need to fight there and have all Christians band together to homeschool and simply empty the schools. Public schools, he says or she says, should be unconstitutional. Public education was started and it was hijacked. It was hijacked, Vladimir Aguilar, by progressives, by those who did not believe in the sovereignty and the exceptionalism of America. They wanted our kids to learn a socialistic worldview and be influenced by that. There's no doubt about that.
I will say that they were trying to avoid the free thinking human being to be out there by themselves.
Yeah, and that's what they don't like about educational freedom is they can't control.
Yes.
They can't control the curriculum and they can't control where that goes. Well, another guy we can't control, we don't even want to. We want him to tell us what he thinks. Bob Waters is a Louisville-based attorney with the Waters Law Group. No, he is not related, although I wouldn't mind. Bob Waters? Bob Waters called me a week ago, and he said on my voice message, he said, "This is your favorite cousin." And I'm trying to think, well, I got people all over the country. Where's this? Who is this? But anyhow, Bob, great to have you with us today. You have a background in intellectual property and business litigation, but you are also, I think it's fair to say, a mover and shaker in Republican political circles here in Greater Louisville, and you are a staunch conservative. Have I got that right?
Yeah, occasional bomb thrower, perhaps.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome, Bob, the occasional bomb thrower. We should just say Bob the bomb thrower. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Political bombs, of course, not real ones. Well, Bob, on Friday you moderated a debate in Bardstown. There was a debate, and this is an important debate because it's going to determine who replaces Senator Jimmy Higdon after he retires. I guess I should say at the end of this year, really, right? This will be his final session with the 14th District Senate seat in Kentucky. Senator Higdon, by the way, has had a long legislative career. We'll have him on to talk about that. But I counted 9 candidates, at least, who are seeking this 14th Senate District seat, which covers LaRue, Marion, Nelson, Spencer, and Washington counties in central Kentucky. They're all within the Kentucky's Voice listening area. There's a lot of interest here, and I'm glad to see that, aren't you, Bob? Especially 7 Republicans vying, 2 Democrats. Did they all show up on Friday?
Well, no, they didn't. There were some that couldn't make it. We had both the Republicans and the Democrats. One of the Democrat candidates experienced a death in the family and had to cancel at the last minute. And there were a few of the Republicans that could not make it, but we had all the main ones, I guess you'd say. We had the 4 Republicans that are, I guess, what you might call the more serious candidates, with the more active campaigns. And so one of those 4 is more likely than not to be the Jimmy Higdon successor. We had the Democrat candidate there, did a really good job and made a really good showing, but the 14th Senate District is not a good venue for the Democrat Party, so it is not likely to be a good day for her in November, but she did really well at the debate.
Yeah. Well, good for her for showing up, right? And kudos. Well, Bob, there was a time in the past when Democrats thought they could grab this seat. I think when Senator Higdon first won this seat, I think there was concern that the Republicans could hold on to this. But it seems like this might be a microcosm of the rest of Kentucky, which has moved more conservative, don't you think, in recent years?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And especially in farm country, you can't find anybody who will even admit to being a Democrat for the most part. Yeah. The National Party is so out of touch. So the real game is in the Republican Party. And the Higdon seat is one of the few open seats this year. And so it is an important seat. So that's why Constitutional Kentucky decided we needed to really do a debate down there because there are some really outstanding candidates, but the people need to get to know them better.
Yeah, so this was put on by Constitutional Kentucky, right? And grassroots group, and great idea, great job. Well, let's talk about the specific candidates in just a moment, but give us your overall analysis of this debate. You were the moderator of this debate, and what were the issues that were covered? Were they substantive? Did the candidates address them directly, do you think? Or was there some evasions or topics, or was everything pretty much head on?
It was pretty much head on. I mean, one of the things that we did, we chose the topics and we chose them with a constitutional emphasis. And we told the candidates, we sent them a list, a pretty detailed list of the things that we're going to be going over, probably about 3 or 4 days before the debate. And I told them that, we're not going to be trying to do a gotcha. Here are the issues. You need to be prepared on these. It included identifying some specific bills that are before the legislature right now. We identified the bills by name and sponsor so that they could look them up, read them, think about them, and come to the debate. You're going to be asked your position on them. And I don't want anybody saying, well, I'm not familiar with that issue or something. And they didn't. I mean, these guys, they were prepared, all of them. And I think it was helpful to let them know what these topics are going to be, because otherwise they will ramble and just, talk about how they love America or something. And we don't, we need something more substantive.
Right.
So we were looking at issues like, there are bills before the legislature right now addressing the housing crisis in Kentucky. Also, there's a fairly significant draconian tort reform bill that's been introduced in the Senate. And of course, this is a Senate seat that is up here. So we asked them to talk about that, to evaluate it. And they stayed on point and actually did real well. I really don't think that any of them did what I would call bombing the debate or something like that.
Well, good job. But we're speaking with Bob Waters, attorney, Republican activist, here on Kentucky's Voice about Friday's debate in Nelson County. Vlad, you were there as well.
Yes.
What was your take on what'd you come away with?
Well, it was pretty good debate, and I like the answers of the candidates, especially the Republican ones. They were they seemed like really prepared for the campaign. So,
was there any issue that stuck out? What about the housing issue? That's a great concern here in terms of having a supply of housing, so young Kentuckians stay here and don't leave our state.
Yes, most of them they addressed the topic really well, and I really love it, to be honest.
Yep. Well, Bob, with all these candidates, you talked about some the most serious ones, I guess, showing up there. How are you able to get Democrats to show up at this? How'd that happen? A Democrat?
Yeah, well, Constitutional Kentucky isn't a partisan group. Now, we are constitutionally emphasized, and so we are conservative. Quite often, the Democrat side of the aisle is somewhat hostile to constitutional rights, but we reached out to them and asked them to come, and they agreed to come. And the Democrat who came, Carrie Truitt, she did really well, and we treated her well. I mean, we did not do anything that would put her at a disadvantage. And actually, I think she was pretty well received, especially when you consider that this was primarily a conservative Republican audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, great job on that. And by the way, if you guys get me a video, or if you have a video, we'll be glad to put that up, and we'll let folks know about it, and we'll cover it some more. I think that could be a precursor for how we should do debates and have these events. It sounds like really a good approach. And in terms of housing, we've got about a minute left. This is we had the housing task force that met. I know Senator Higdon was a big part of that during the interim. And what did you come away with, Bob? We've got about a minute left in this segment, really a little less than that. But what is the one thing you came away with that maybe there is agreement on, that maybe we can actually see happen during this session?
Well, with regard to housing, we had asked them to look at the bills currently sponsored by Representative Richard White, and then there's two bills by Representative Susan Whitten. And they all endorsed those bills, and they really are good bills. Some of the candidates had different takes on it, different reasons why they supported it, but they all did. And so I think that particularly in rural Kentucky, these are good bills.
Yeah, and I think they all do something to remove hindrances, right, and obstacles to more housing, which we need to have. We're visiting with Bob Waters, Louisville attorney and GOP activist who moderated a big debate in Nelson County on Friday night, Bardstown, one of my favorite places in the whole wide world. And we have one of my favorite co-hosts in the whole wide world, Vladimir Aguilar. We'll be back in just a moment.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us, speak up, stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And thanks for staying with us here for our final segment on Kentucky's Voice on this Tuesday. Glad to have you along with us. Hope you'll let us know you're listening. 502-571-0970 is our Kentucky's Voice text line, and you can partner with us by texting KY Voice to 53555. And you can give us a one-time or recurring monthly gift there, as this is a listener-supported ministry and program. And also, if you're a business owner out there, I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to help you build your business, expand your customer base, and build your brand among the most loyal media listeners and viewers in the state, in the country. Vladimir Aguilar, my great co-host.
Even the followers of the Q and Show are now watching the Kentucky Sports.
And you have a ton of them too.
Yep.
You have a big following, so I feel blessed to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us. Well, we're also joined today by Bob Waters, Louisville attorney and GOP activist who moderated a big debate hosted by Constitutional Kentucky on Friday night over in Nelson County, beautiful town of Bardstown there. And Bob, great event. Sounded like you did a great job. A lot of important issues covered. But let's move now to the state as a whole and what we're saying. And I have a question for you that I'd like to get your perspective on and feedback on. We are, I think, one of the anomalies, and Kentucky's politics has always been interesting, right? It's always been, there's always been interesting things about it that really attract people from around the country, and we're sort of at the center of the country many times in the discussion. But I think one of the anomalies that I still can't figure out is that we have a deep, deep red state. Is that fair? I mean, if you look at Trump's numbers here and you look at conservatives' numbers, they're off the charts. I mean, only Indiana really gives us a run for that. I think Indiana and Kentucky had the two highest percentage of Trump votes in all three of his elections, and one that he lost, the two that he won. But yet we have this left-wing, deep, deep blue governor. What's your perspective on this? And there's no right or wrong answer here. I think it's a really, in a way, an interesting part of our politics that says that voters seem to be okay with this, that we're going to have a conservative legislature and a progressive governor. Is that it? Or why do you think voters have chosen this dichotomy? What's your take on that?
Well, I actually don't think so. I feel like Andy Bashir is the last. Um, old dynasties die hard, and Bashir benefited from the name recognition of his father, etc. But over the last 10 or 15 years, thanks to Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama, uh, Kentucky has become extremely conservative. And uh, if you look at the Democrat Party, Bashir is the last. When he's gone, and it can't come soon enough, I don't see anyone left on the Democrat bench. Certainly, there's no stars in the legislature or anywhere in Kentucky to step up. And so we my prediction is we're going to see about a 20-year run without a serious Democrat contender.
So you're saying
state.
there's some lag time, right? There's lag time between what we're seeing, and that this is sort of catching up to where Kentucky is. Although I've heard names thrown around like Rocky Atkins, who had a long legislative career, who's popular in Eastern Kentucky in particular. We haven't had a governor that's really been that for a while. Most of the focus has been on Louisville, Lexington, and sort of the Golden Triangle. Do you think that makes any difference at all? Is that a possibility?
Rocky has some political talent. I know him, and he's would be a more serious contender than most in the Democrat Party. But I don't think he has the fire for it. I don't think he'll do it.
You got to have the fire for this, right? That's a great point.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And if you look at the constitutional offices, I mean, typically a person who's been Secretary of State or Treasurer or Attorney General, that's the your training ground for a governor run. And the Democrats don't have anyone there. So I think it's going to be really tough for them. Now, you never want to count anybody out completely. Right. They could make a comeback because, eventually the locusts come back, right?
You mentioned it 20 years. 20 at some point, all good things, I suppose, must come to an end, right?
Right.
But and so we're speaking with Bob Waters, great attorney locally, who's really been visible in the local GOP here and the work of the GOP, which has been very important. And Bob, we've seen. And I think it's in no small part because of your work and others, conservatives, a real change in Louisville here. We've got the possibility of a real sea change politically on our Metro Council, don't we?
Yeah, we do. As it stands right now, I mean, the Republicans are one seat shy of having a majority, and the Democrats are so split between some who are slightly crazy and some who are off the charts crazy, that essentially the Republicans have somewhat of a working majority right now. Mm-hmm. And after this next election, it may be an outright majority in all likelihood.
Yeah. Vladimir?
Well, actually, speaking out of that, I forgot to mention Bob is my personal lawyer. and
Very good.
He has been helping the Cuban Conservative Coalition quite a bit. Actually, we found some ideas together.
I see him in those pictures you post on Facebook.
And I thanks Bob all the time for the hard work he's doing for the conservative in Kentucky.
Well, very good. Guys, we got a couple of minutes left, and I want to Bob, I want to talk to you a moment about judicial reform. And I think this is going to become a more serious issue with the rulings. And let me say this. I think that the ruling by this Kentucky Supreme Court on House Bill 9, the public charter school law, is, and I quote the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, the most poorly reasoned argument in 35-year history of charter schools in this country. It's outrageous because of the consequences of this. And I went to this hearing. I went to the oral arguments on this bill, and I was so disappointed with the lack of competency by these judges. I'm sorry, and it's not personal, but it is really concerning to me. Are you concerned about this? And there's got to be concern, I know, among some legislators about this. But the question is, and we don't have enough time, but the question is what to do about it. Do you have that concern? Am I overstating it? Am I just responding to this one decision? Or is this something that we've seen a pattern of?
No, I don't think you're overstating it, Jim. Kentucky has some really outstanding judges, and I know a lot of them. But the recent turns at the Supreme Court are really troubling, and it's embarrassing even to many judges. And this is something that the state needs to address.
Well, Bob, we just got a text saying we need a new way to pull off judges. But, when we start talking about this, what are the options? There's appointments. You could have appointments with the Senate confirming. You could have gubernatorial appointments like we do, mirroring the national federal approach where the president puts forth nominees and then the Senate confirms. We could get rid of this. Maybe one idea is to get rid of this district where we elect Supreme Courts to represent districts. After all, this is the state Supreme Court, and we saw in the hearing on the charter school bill, we saw the Lexington judge play to her district. We saw the Northern Kentucky judge play to her district. Both of these progressives, one of them heavily supported by the Jefferson County Teachers Union. How is this not corrupt? How is this right at all?
It really is, and the politicization of the Supreme Court has really been an unfortunate consequence. I don't think it was that way even 10 years ago, but the trend since then has gotten worse and worse.
How should we begin? What should we begin to do about this, in your view, your legal view?
Two things. We've got to convince the public to get more interested in the Supreme Court and other judicial races. And then we also have to address misconduct in office. It is possible to remove a judge, but it's very, very difficult. They almost have to go down on Main Street and start shooting people. And particularly when you're looking at competence. And there are some real competence problems in Kentucky, just in a few places. But it's really just a localized thing. The Jefferson County Family Court is a total disaster of incompetence and bias.
Well, maybe we need a task force like we've had on some of these other issues to meet and bring in smart people like you and others who have a great legal mind to talk about this. I want to get to a couple of texts that we've had also, Bob, here. One is, in order to vote in Kentucky, you need a driver's license, hence giving driver's licenses to 16-year-olds and fraud in your local DMVs. That's another area that we need some reform in. We saw cash being given out under the table in order for illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses in our state under this administration. And somehow he slides on this. He's just like Velcro on this. There hasn't been very little accountability by this governor or for this governor on that issue at all. And maybe there's just too many other things. Never count out the extra ballots in Louisville, Lexington, and Bowling Green. We need to have a new way to pull off judges. Just a whole lot of interest, I think, in these issues. And perhaps the answer here is to have some real task force hearings on this that are serious, that have some kind of force, some kind of teeth, so that whatever the recommendations are, at least the General Assembly has to vote on them. Bob Waters, in the final 45 seconds that we have.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And in the case of the governor, I'm disappointed that our supermajority doesn't get more aggressive in terms of holding this governor in check. The financial misconduct, for example, was absolutely outrageous. And I don't see any action being taken by the legislature to investigate or to do anything. And maybe there's things going on behind the scenes.
Right, we may see them. Let's hope so, right? Let's hope so. Bob Waters, thank you. We're out of time. Thanks so much for the time. We'll do this again. We love having you on. Thanks for joining us. Vladimir Aguilar, my co-host. Be sure to check out The Cuban Show, the Cuban Conservative Coalition. Bob Waters, Vlad Aguilar, we've had the dynamic duo here today on the Kentucky's Voice, and most of all, we've had you with us. And thank you for joining us today. If you're listening, be sure to watch this afternoon, 12:30, 4 and 8 o'clock, and join us tomorrow for more of Kentucky's Voice. God bless. Have a great day, everyone.
God bless.